Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Insights. This is our first ever tutorial on the channel. We're going to be doing a deep dive into as many creative industries as we can over the next few months. And we're just going to kick it right off today with Premiere Pro, the basics. Now, if you already have an understanding of Premiere Pro or you're not into video editing at all, please stay tuned. We're going to have things from music industry, 3D printing, programming, Photoshop, photography. We're going to have every creative industry you can think of, so stay tuned and let's dive right into it. Right, so getting started, the first thing we have to actually do is open up Adobe Premiere Pro. So when this loads up, you'll be welcomed with a Premiere Pro startup screen. It will list your recent projects here, if there are any. We're going to come right over here to the New Project button, and when you click that, you'll be asked for a name for your project, where to save it, and then a variety of details about the project. So we're just going to start with tutorial 01. And in here in browse, we're going to find a project folder. Got it here. Tutorial 01 and choose. Now, down here, you don't really need to change any of these settings for just now. Well, we will be going over scratch disks at some point and proxy files and all of that. But for just now, we'll click OK and get started. So that, as you can see over here in my project folder, that's created a tutorial 01 project. And if we come in here, it's just a variety of blank workspaces. Yours might look a little bit different to mine at the start. What you'd need to do is come up to Window, Workspaces, and then you can choose from one of these options depending on what you're doing. Now, I like to be in the editing mode. And what we first need to do now that we're in here is start by importing some files. So down here, you've got what's called the project bin. This is where all your files will live. And there's a few different ways of importing. You can press Command or Control I. That will import some folders or files. You can double click right here, or you can simply drag the files that you want into the project bin. So that should load up and import those files right now. There we go. And what I have here is I've got a few different overlays and a few different clips and then a sound file. Now we're going to start just by organizing these clips into different bins. Now that's basically what Premiere Pro calls a folder. So I'm just going to choose my actual video clips here. I'm going to drag them into a folder down here and call this footage. I'm going to leave the music file outside, but I'm going to just simply rename it music. And then I'm going to grab these, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are what I'm going to be using for overlays in the video, and explain a little bit more about them as we get on with the tutorial, but I'm just going to drag these in as overlays / transitions. Okay, now to get started from here, we actually need to create a sequence. Now there's a few ways again about going about this. You can click down here in this wee item, new sequence, and that's where you'd need to know the actual details of your project already. But one of the easiest ways, if you're using one camera specifically, or you know that that one file is what you want your video to be, you can click and drag one of your clips onto the timeline over here, and that will create a sequence with the right settings. As you can see, here's a wee sequence file. So I'm just going to drag that out into the main project bin so we can always access that. And let's rename this main sequence. There we go. Now you can delete that one clip if you want and start again, but you've now at least got a timeline function. So just a quick overview of what we've got on screen. This is a timeline of where you'll edit your actual sequence, your video, and this is the main sequence viewer. So anything that's showing in this timeline will be previewed up here. Up here you've also got another preview, but that is for viewing just specific clips in your project bin. So you can preview a clip in here, you can run through the clip, you can find a start and end point, which we'll go over in a little bit, or you can drag it into your project and view it over here on the timeline. What you've also got up here is effect controls. This will let you modify whatever clip you are currently selected on. So right now I've not selected a clip, I can't change any values. If I click onto this, I get options for motion, opacity, and time remapping. Within that I've got position, scale, and all the options you can see on screen. So this is where you would make tweaks to your clip. This is where you'll drag in your effects, and this is also where you'll be able to add keyframes to animate specific aspects. So say for example we wanted to add a fade. A fade is just going from 0 opacity to 100 opacity. So we could come over here, and as you can see, it's in blue, which is to toggle animation. So if it's like that, you'd want to click that so that the wee clock icon is blue, and you've just made a keyframe here on the timeline. Now I can go to the point where I want it to be at 0 opacity, change this value here to 0, and that's me now made a keyframed animation to fade in. So if I press play, there we go. There's also other ways to interact with these keyframes. If you hold Option or Alt on the keyboard and scroll down in the timeline here, and then same over here to the right, sorry, you can see there's a line here with some keyframes. So I could come to the start of this clip, drag that keyframe up, and now it's at 100% again. You can see the value change over here as well. So if I bring that whole line down, that's us at 25% opacity. If I bring these back, that's us animated again. So what I'm going to actually do is delete this clip for just now and bring in the music. And what I'm going to do from here is actually make this a solo clip, because we only want music to be playing through this. And I'm going to lock it in place using this wee icon here. Because I can't drag that file, I can't change it in any shape or form, and that will just sit in place quite nicely. Again, same with the video timeline and the audio timeline. You can zoom in to see further what you're working on, or you can hide it away to save some space on screen. So let's go into the footage folder for a second and let's have a wee look. I've got 4 clips lined up. We've got here a clip of a spaceship, which would be great to start off the video and set the scene, show where you are. We've got some electronics. This is actually a CPU for a computer, but will serve its purpose here. We've got a long clip of a guy working in slow motion. And then we have a computer clip of somebody typing on a computer screen. We're gonna actually bring this clip in first, and we'll just drag it from over here onto the timeline. And then we're going to want to start and end with this clip. So I'm going to want to find a nice spot where I think it should end for the intro shot. And there's actually a nice wee flare that pops up. I'm going to leave this wee flare for the ending. So I'm going to go back a little bit, round about there. And then we have these tools over here next to the timeline. So this tool right here, the razor tool, is how you would cut a video clip. So you can also access that by pressing C on the keyboard, and pressing V will get you back to this selection tool. So I'm going to press C right now and just make a cut here at the playhead. There we go. And pressing V, I can get back to selection and move this second half of the clip right to the end. Now, from here, that's one clip, it will play through, and then as soon as it reaches the end, it's just going to stop. There'll be a blank screen. The music will continue as it's still playing through the timeline, but there's no video clip showing up right now. So I'm going to stop bringing in the rest of my clips, just dragging them onto the timeline in order right now that I want them, and then we can work from there. So I've found the end of my project can't end right at the end of the track. So what I'm going to do is unlock this music track for a second. I'm going to zoom right in here, open up some more space. I'm going to press another keyboard shortcut, which is P. Now, all that's selecting is this pen tool over here. And what we're going to do is actually work with that line that I mentioned earlier on. So when you're working with an audio file, this first initial line actually means your audio level. So it's your volume. So right now, if I put this up, it'll be louder. If I put it down, you can't hear it. So I'm going to want to put that back at 0 for just now. That'll do. and we're going to find the end of these clips. I'm just going to play through and find a moment that we want to stop fading out. So I'm going to press P on the keyboard again, click on this line, click at the end of my clip and drag that key point down. And now, as you can see, it will fade the music out. Fab. So we'll want to tweak that a little bit better once we have the exact timing of the video. But to start with, we're going to jump back to the start of the clip here. And we're going to join these two clips with a transition. Now, remember when I mentioned about some overlays earlier on? That's where the beauty of video editing and layering different files is you can get different styles and techniques just by adding clips above clips. So here, if you have a wee watch through, this is just a flare that pops up over the screen with a black background. Now, if I just drag this over the timeline and put it above those two clips, what'll happen is it'll play the spaceship, then it'll play that video, and when that's done, it'll play the clip 2, which isn't what we want at all, obviously. So what we're actually going to do is select clip 01, that anamorphic flare there, and come into Effect Controls, Opacity, and we're going to find Blend Mode. Now this is exactly, I don't know if anyone's used Photoshop before, but it's the exact same way. You come in here and you've got a variety of different blend modes. So if I clicked Saturation, for example, it's going to saturate the areas that have the flare. If I come into Multiply, it's going to add this darker effect and merge the two. But the one we actually want to go for here is Screen. Now what Screen does is it removes all of the black. So now if we play through that clip, you'll only see the flashing lights. Now that's a little bit too weak for what we're wanting, and it's still a harsh transition. So what we want to do is find its brightest moment, which is right here near the end. So find its brightest moment and bring that over this clip between the two. And then we're going to move this up one and move clip 2 further up and drag it a little bit over, just a few frames over the spaceship. And that means that we can now come in again and create a very small fade between clip 1 and clip 2. Now, the fade and the flares should add a little bit of a smooth transition. So if we play through here, I'm going to actually drag that over a little bit more. And another thing that we can do to make this effect a little bit stronger is hold the Alt Option key on the keyboard and drag the flare 1 up. And what that's doing is making a duplicate, so we'll have a lot brighter flare just now. That's okay. And as you can tell down here, well, I don't know if anyone had noticed yet, but there's actually a sound clip attached to this. That sound clip, if you play it through, it's completely empty. It's just brought in a sound file. So it's a perfect time to take a look at Unlink. What Unlink does is if you right click on a clip, you can press Unlink and that will separate the two. So now if I drag this video over, the sound stays here. So the use for this right now is that we can click on that audio clip and just press delete. There we go. So now if we play this through, we now have our very first transition between clip 1 and clip 2. I'm happy with that. So that will play through the video clip. And now we want to start doing the same to this second clip. But as you can see, this video clip is really, really long, and there's no way we want this to be on screen for that long. It's a sort of slow motion video of the guy working. So what we want to do is play through slow motion for a second and then speed it up. So we can get through the whole clip without having to watch what's more or less a minute's worth of footage. So what we're going to actually do is first right click here on top of this effects button, that wee yellow icon there on the timeline. So right click, time remapping, speed. And now we've got what looks like a different line, and the actual video seems to have disappeared, the thumbnail. So what we can do now is find a place that we're happy with the slow-mo ending. And again, we add in a keyframe, pressing P on the keyboard, clicking here on the time frame, playing through the video clip until a moment that we're happy with it coming back into slow motion. Round about here. Click on the keyboard on the timeline again, and now what we've got are these two heads here. So if we click on the right hand side of the first head and drag it over a little bit, and the left side drag it over a little bit to the left, what we've done is make a sort of curve. So right now it's still playing slow motion, but we can click this line in the middle, and as you can see, it drags up. And what this is doing is, as you can see on the percentage, we're speeding this video clip up. So now if we take that to about 500%, go, and as you can see, this is ramped from 100 to 500 and then back down to 100 again. So what we can do now is play through the video clip, and it should speed into motion and then slow out again. Now I'm actually going to drag that up even further and go to 1000%. There we go. Play this through, and that should be a more intense effect here. And what we could actually do is even drag this down so it becomes even more slow motion. So we'll drag that to about 60%. There we go. Now I'm wanting to come out and pull this effect here, so I'm going to press C, cut on the keyboard, V again to use the selection tool, click on the clip and delete. Now we can go to our next clip. So I'm going to just drag this over a few frames again, create our transition, P on the keyboard, press on the timeline, click on the line, drag that keyframe down, and that's us added a wee transition there. Now we'll go back to this first transition and do the same with our anamorphic lights. So again, finding the brightest moment of the clip, round about here, lining that up with the change between clips, effect controls, and changing the blend mode to screen. There we go. And we want to just make sure we add in a wee tiny fade down here, so that just gets that wee bit of a smoother transition. There we go. And let's line this one up down here as well. Perfect. And we're just going to add number 3, transition number 3 in here. Brightest moment being round about there. And just set that blend mode to screen. There we go. And as we can see, we've got 2 more of these sound files. So just select, right click, unlink, select, delete. Now we're going to bring back our last clip, and that's the spaceship flying in space again with the lovely flare. And we'll just line these up at the end. Click P, fade out this top clip, bring it all down, and add in our last transition. Finding the brightest moment, there we go, click, drag it right over, and just set this to screen, and now we have our transition. Now the one last thing I'd say we could do is on this very last clip, just very slowly fade it out, along with the music as well. There we go. And we're just going to come right to the end here and press O on the keyboard. Now what that does is it sets here these parameters. You can also click on this mark out button, and that just puts the end of our video. So when we render this out, we can render it within this area, and that will keep everything nice and tidy. So let's just have a quick watch. One pro tip in terms of previewing your video, you can press on the keyboard the backwards apostrophe when hovering over the main sequence, or you can double click on the main sequence at the top and watch in full screen. Now that we have our video created, I'm just going to pause that there. We're actually going to come and export this. So what we can do is jump up to File, Export, and Media, or press Control or Command M, depending on whether you're on a Windows or a Mac. And from here, we're going to get the export settings. So there's a variety of different settings that you'd use in a variety of different scenarios, but on the off chance that you're uploading for YouTube or for social media or any online use, your best format to use, or the best format I'd recommend, is H.264, and with the preset, just going to click Match Source and High Bitrate. What that's going to do is it's going to match the settings of our sequence file here, and it's going to put it at its highest resolution with the H.264 compression, which is brilliant for having a high resolution file, a very low file size. As we can see, the estimated file size here is 80 megabytes. Now, we will have a full video going over different export settings and why you would use them in what scenario, but for just now, we're going to go with H.264. Now, you can come in and tweak these settings individually if you'd like to, if you know what setting you want to be changing. Say you want to have a different audio codec, or you want to have a higher bit rate. But for just now, like I say, we're going to leave it as is. Now, the one thing you do want to change here is the output name, and by clicking on this, it will also ask you where you want to save this. So I'm going to call this Final Video 01. And in here, if you are uploading to YouTube, you actually have the possibility to come in and add your YouTube account details, choose your channel, and it will actually let you upload directly to YouTube from Premiere Pro. But I'm going to deactivate that just now, and we're just going to hit export here using maximum render quality, disable the rest of the settings here, and we're going to press export. Now this will render out the audio and video files into one MP4 file for you to preview and upload. That is the process and the basics of getting started with Adobe Premiere Pro. I hope you've learned something. I think we've went over the basics of cutting, selecting, importing, creating a project, and exporting a project after you're done. So let us know if there's anything specific you'd like us to cover from here on. If not, we will keep on making tutorials.